Hey guys, Chris here. I want to do a video today talking about pickup artists, pickup lines, and this all the pickup uh, information that's out there in terms of meeting women and picking up women, and how this relates to semen retention and non-semen retention. You might have guessed you don't really need that stuff as much because, as we've talked about, is you become that guy. You know, you naturally will by valuing yourself and respecting yourself more with boundaries and all this sort of healing work that has been happening. You walk into a room and you have that aura and that energy, and you have the high testosterone, the courage to go up to someone and speak to them, the higher self-esteem, the self-esteem which is built on you valuing yourself and you knowing yourself and who you are. Whereas the pickup stuff was always about, I don't know who I am, I don't really think I'm good enough, and blah, blah, blah. So then you create a false self, and then you learn the lines and you go, I'm going to walk into a cafe like this. And maybe this is a phase that you do sometimes need to go through, at least back in the day. But when I went through it, it was always a case of, I always felt there was something more, like some of this stuff is not genuine. It's also attracting a certain type of person, a certain type of woman. If you're a guy who's got low self-esteem because you created this false self, that you are, who you are underneath is not good enough. So that is essentially is low self-esteem. And it also probably bridges into narcissism as well, because that's the thing. It's the image, the who you put out there is you, is you, but it isn't really you. This is more a journey now with the semen retention and the more, I think, the natural charisma that's coming out. If anything, you becoming that guy who other people will study now, and they'll be like, oh yeah, what's he saying? What's the lines? And this was happening to me not too long ago as well. People were saying like, oh yeah, what's the line? And I was like, not even interested in this stuff. It's kind of, people just want to know. And it was never always about, I guess it's always about women as well. It's about, building a social circle or just being someone who attracts things, in good situations, maybe almost like feels like this person is lucky, so you're getting something else. And if you're just writing down what are they actually doing, as we've been talking about on these videos, it's who you become. And I think the guy you want to become is the guy, the high self-esteem person who is just comfortable being himself and knowing who he is, and obviously talked about on this channel about removing lots of different things to know who you are. And for me, I've been on this journey for quite a while, and I was massively into the pickup stuff. But what I found is that, I guess I was never, it did create this like strong ego of who, not really deep down underneath feeling like I could be myself, it didn't, and you would attract that in the partner as well. You would attract a more woman with a lower self-esteem, or maybe you'd want to be a guy who was in control, and they, maybe weren't growing as much. They, you were the more person who was doing all the self-improvement and all this sort of stuff. Whereas now I sort of feel it would be good to meet like essentially a mirror, to get your needs met. If I want to be vulnerable and I want to be open, I want to share this and I want to do that, I want to have a partner who can be open to that. Whereas now is like, if I could do that and they weren't open to it, it wouldn't work. So this is why, for example, I don't really use the dating apps anymore, because most women I probably wouldn't date. Like, that's just my opinion with who I meet, because of the amount of stuff I've done, the amount of work I've done. And I know there are other women out there who've been doing a lot of this work as well. So you're looking for that in the other person. And this stuff comes up naturally. You're more present, you're more in the moment. So the right so-called line or thing to say will come. If you're in your head and you're like thinking about what to say, and you're on the date and you're constantly thinking, it's so much better to be the person, the authentic person, to get what you want. Obviously it's a long journey maybe sometimes to get there, but this is, for me, this is the best way. So that industry, what I realized, and I do know people who are in that, and when I spoke to them, sometimes it's like they've not evolved, like they've not moved on, like they don't understand what meditation is and all this stuff that I've been doing, or when I did ayahuasca and all this sort of stuff. It's sort of like scratching their head like, what is this, like, what, this is weird. it's more like the soul doesn't grow. It's just constantly going on dates, dates, just dating a woman. And in a way, it can just be like dating a woman till the woman finds out the real you, and then you push them away, or you end up with a woman that you can kind of be this person, and you can get them in a place where they don't question who you are. And I only realized this, more recently with people women I was with, was that, they weren't doing this to me. They weren't the ones who were opening emotionally and being able to meet my needs. So it's like, oh, okay, now it's like getting to that equilibrium of like, they meet your needs and you meet their needs. So this is to do with who you are as a person, because if you get with someone and you can't really be yourself, you can't really open up emotionally because you want to pretend to be strong and all this sort of stuff. And these are just society, of how a man should be. It's not about, sometimes with the semen retention, with following your soul, is like you're going with what feels right. And people might be like, that's not true, but that's that's just from the mind, right? You can't, what it's like. And it's not like semen retention is not masculine. I mean, your testosterone is going through the roof. You have so much energy. You can have a lot more courage. You're a lot more disciplined. I mean, it's like one of the most masculine things you can do, so that's kind of where it is on there. And I think the industry, and particularly when I was there, is, we talk about this, just creating this false self and people wanting to be the best, and very self-critical of other people, is, you have to bring this under like narcissistic kind of traits, which I kind of taken on some myself. Like, that's not who I am, but I felt I had to be like that. And the authentic side is is something I feel like I was always striving for. And recently ended up in similar situations, like with narcissistic people, and you're the empath, you're the person with all this light that you can shine through. And people who can't evolve spiritually, it's much better to just embody yourself. You go on a date, it doesn't go well, go home, journal, self-reflect, and you will always sit with the feelings, and you will always grow and become a better person. Whereas the false self, the pickup thing, was like, oh, it's a numbers game. Oh yeah, you just went out with this girl, it didn't work. And I can remember in the beginning, it was just like I was dating anyone who was attractive. It was like I always wanted to go out with them again, and it was like it didn't even matter who they really were as a person, because it was very much like you want to be the guy who gets with the hot girl. And now is like, obviously there was the good character, but then it's like so narrowed down now into what do you actually want. And then the semen retention thing as well, it brings you more to your purpose. Like with men, it's always about purpose. I felt, that's my thing. When your purpose is just meeting women and chasing women, the women will eventually see you for who you really are. And it's like, what do you actually do? And you're like, no, I just pick up women. That's what I do, or I'm just dating, But I think if you're so like embodied with like, this is my purpose, this is my mission, that is attractive, and I think that's a massive thing which the semen retention does. It brings you more to that, because of the nature of just hooking up with lots of different women. You're giving your seed away, you're giving your energy away, you're exchanging energy with people you don't really know sometimes, you've just hooked up with in the club. So you want to be sharing your energy with the right people, if that's where you're going, and meeting the right mate as well, the one that makes you feel good. Like, she could be really attractive, but she could be carrying so much anxiety and so much negativity. Speaking to someone not too long ago who's with someone who was very negative thoughts, but very attractive and very low vibration, but they've taken on that, and they're like, look at this woman I'm with, she's beautiful, but then the energy is not a match. This is partly what the thing is with a man as well. It's like, separating the looks as well, because the woman could be massively disrespecting you and taking a lot of things from you, and this is for you to learn that lesson. It can be harder to learn that lesson, but this is, I think, the most important thing. So the pickup lines are not necessarily needed, but yeah, obviously you can read the sort of things with awareness and see what works and see what women are attracted to, but you start to become that person through semen retention, and it's just validating what that stuff is. So, you know, this has died out now, and you've got something like this practice we're talking about now. So things evolve. But I know sometimes most people are in their head, and they're constantly on the dating apps, and there's all this dating has changed now. The pickup stuff was also a lot of self-improvement as well, which was good, and that was interesting, because it was like, okay, how can I grow as a man? And it got me to where I am. So I don't always want to keep knocking things, but it's like I can see that so clearly now. But being aware as well, some of these books you're reading, might be written by people who are not as spiritually aware, not as, you know, they may just slept with hundreds of women, they know what works, but then, you know, you want to be careful as to know like where you're going with this, you know, what point of view. These things can be quite misogynistic, for example. So you always want to be careful with what you're following. But I think if you're very self-aware and you're mature and you know what's right or wrong, you're not easily influenced, these things can happen. So anyway, I want to share that video today. I hope you found it useful, and obviously done these videos every now and again. Last time I explored a bit more of the therapy side of you, where I talked about enmeshment with pickup artists, and how they can end up with that. Because at the end of the day, sometimes if you're just constantly going from woman to woman, and it's this childhood wound with your mother, and you're just constantly recycling same, that's the thing is, if you're bringing the same person in your life every time, everyone should be different. Every time you meet a partner, they should be completely different, you know. Really reflect and be like, okay, where did this not work? Okay, now this. And I think if you're going on so many dates, like sometimes I do meet people who are just dating all the time, like date every night or whatever, you should know like what you're looking for, you know. Don't just keep going on dates endlessly. You know, eventually you should know like the kind of woman you're looking for, and you'll know that she's probably not everywhere, you know. She's going to be a certain type, and you will meet that person at the right time, you know, when you're ready to learn the next lesson. And in the meantime, just focus on yourself, and you can meet that person anywhere, you know. That's generally how things work with the universe, and that's kind of how these things generally manifest. And it could just be that you have to focus on yourself for a while, and at the same time go out and do the things that you want to do, you know. Go to the places you want to go to, learn the hobbies you want to go to. That's what I found, and you generally will meet the right person at the right time, wherever you are in the world. So yeah, I thought I'd share that, and I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.